I want to begin tonight not with a principle but with a confession, one that I suspect you have made to yourself in private, more than once. You knew, you felt it clearly. The wish was vivid, the acceptance was genuine, the feeling of the thing already accomplished was, for a moment, absolutely real. And then you told someone. Perhaps you told a friend whose opinion you trusted. Perhaps you told a family member you loved. Perhaps you only told one person, and only once. And it seemed so harmless at the time. But something shifted after that conversation. The clarity dimmed slightly. The certainty lost a degree of its edge. And in the days that followed, as the outer world offered no confirming evidence, their skepticism, expressed or merely implied, found its way into the soil of your own consciousness, where it took root alongside your desire and quietly strangled it. This has happened to more people than I can count, and it has happened not because they lacked imagination, not because they failed to understand the law, but because they violated a principle so fundamental, so deeply embedded in the very nature of creation that to ignore it is to undermine every other practice before it begins. The principle is this: what is growing must be protected from what would prevent it from growing. Tonight I want to speak to you about silence, not as a spiritual mood, not as a vague recommendation toward inwardness, but as a precise, active, indispensable instrument of creation. And I want to speak to you about something that the teachers of this law rarely address with the directness it deserves. The role of your associations, the people you keep around you, the conversations you participate in, the environments you return to day after day, in either supporting or defeating your transformation. By the time we are finished, I believe you will understand not only what to do, but why. And that understanding will make silence not a discipline you impose upon yourself, but a natural consequence of knowing how consciousness works. The common misunderstanding of silence is that it is an absence. The absence of speech, the absence of noise, the absence of action. And because it is framed as absence, as not doing, the mind dismisses it. Because the mind is convinced that creation requires activity, that things are built by effort, that progress is measured by output. But I want to show you tonight that silence is not the absence of anything. Silence is a presence. It is in fact the presence of your full creative power, concentrated, undissipated, available entirely to the work of assumption. Consider how you were made. In Scripture we are told that God spoke the world into being. But notice what is not recorded. God did not announce his intentions to anyone before speaking. He did not seek the counsel of other minds. He did not describe the vision to companions who might offer their assessment of its feasibility. In the absolute privacy of his own consciousness, in the undisturbed silence of his own being, he said, "Let there be." And the speaking itself was the creation. This is your pattern. You are made in that image. And the law by which you create is the same law. Assumption, felt and accepted in consciousness, externalizes itself as fact. But the power of that assumption, its pressure, its creative force, is directly related to how concentrated it remains. And every time you speak of your desire to another, you release a portion of that pressure into the atmosphere, where it dissipates and accomplishes nothing. Think of a steam engine. The power that drives it forward is not steam in the abstract. It is steam under pressure, contained, directed. The moment you open a valve and allow that pressure to escape freely into the air, the engine slows. The steam is not gone, but the force it carried is no longer available for the work it was meant to do. Your consciousness operates by precisely this principle. The creative pressure that builds around a deeply held, fully accepted assumption is an extraordinary force. It reorganizes your subconscious patterns. It alters the signals you send to everyone around you. It determines what you notice, what opportunities you perceive, what responses you attract. But it builds through concentration, through containment. And it is dissipated immediately, reliably, and sometimes irreversibly through unnecessary speech. There is another dimension to this that I must address. When you speak of your desire to another person, you do not only release pressure, you also invite a response. And that response, however well-intentioned, carries with it the weight of that person's own consciousness, their own history of limitation, their own settled beliefs about what is and is not possible for someone like you. Even if they say nothing discouraging, the questions they ask, the look that crosses their face, the slight pause before they say, "That's wonderful," all of it lands in your consciousness and plants something there. Something small, perhaps, something that you do not consciously register. But the deeper mind registers everything, and it will work on what it receives. This is why silence is not merely useful. It is foundational. It is the container within which the entire process of manifestation must be held. Now, I want to address something that is, I know, more uncomfortable than the subject of silence. Silence is a personal discipline. It requires only that you govern yourself. What I am about to describe requires something that touches your relationships, your loyalties, your sense of obligation to the people you care about. And so I want to speak to it with the care it deserves. Every person in your life is not only a person. Every person in your life is also a state of consciousness, a living, breathing reminder of who you have been in their presence, of the version of yourself they have known and related to, and in many cases have a vested interest in you remaining. This is not a criticism of anyone. It is simply how consciousness works. The people closest to us carry an image of us that was formed by observation over time. And each time we are in their presence, that image, transmitted through the 10,000 subtle cues of their speech, their manner, their expectations, exerts a pressure on our own self-concept. Not a malicious pressure, not a deliberate one, but a pressure nonetheless, and one that operates below the level of conscious awareness. You have felt this. You know how it feels to return to your childhood home and within hours feel yourself contracting back into the person you were at 17. You know how it feels to spend an afternoon with someone who has always known you as struggling, and to come away from that encounter slightly less certain of the transformation you have been working to establish. You know how powerfully the consciousness of another person can pull you back into a state you have been working hard to leave. This is what I call the law of state resonance. Consciousness naturally seeks alignment with the predominant consciousness of its environment. Just as a tuning fork struck in a room will cause nearby strings of the same frequency to vibrate in sympathy, your consciousness will tend to harmonize with the dominant states of the people around you, especially the people whose opinion of you matters to you, whose image of you has been formed over years of shared experience. Now, the crucial question is not whether this law operates. It does always, without exception. The crucial question is what you intend to do about it. And here is where I must be direct. If you are attempting to move from one state of consciousness to another, from lack to abundance, from obscurity to recognition, from loneliness to love, and you continue to surround yourself daily with people who know you only in the old state, you are attempting to transform while remaining inside the very container that gave the old state its shape. You are trying to become the butterfly while staying inside the caterpillar's social circle. I am not instructing you to end your relationships. I am not telling you that the people in your life do not matter, or that love requires distance, or that transformation demands cruelty. What I am telling you is this: there is a difference between a person and the state they represent in your consciousness, and what you must separate yourself from, quietly, without drama, without announcement, is not the person but the state. The conversations that return you to the old identity, the environments that reinforce the old limitations, the gatherings where the collective consciousness pulls the dial back to the old frequency every time you have managed to find the new one. This separation need not be permanent. It need not be announced. It need not be justified or explained to anyone. It needs only to be done with the same quiet naturalness with which you would close a door to keep out the cold. I want to give you a precise image of what you are doing when you observe both of these disciplines together: the silence of speech and the selective management of your associations. Because I find that when people understand what they are, rather than merely what they must do, they practice them with far greater consistency and far less internal resistance. You are protecting a seed. When a farmer plants a seed, he does not dig it up each morning, to show visitors how it is progressing. He does not hold it up to the light to let others inspect it and offer their opinions on its prospects. He does not take it to gatherings where the assembled company has historically agreed that seeds like this one never amount to much. He plants it in the darkness of the earth, seals the soil above it, and trusts the law of growth to do what the law of growth has always done. Your desire is a seed. Your consciousness is the soil. And the darkness, the silence, the sealed ground, these are not obstacles to growth. They are its conditions. In Scripture, the ark that Noah built was sealed before the waters came. And that detail, that the ark was sealed, is not incidental. The sealing is the principle. Noah did not leave the door open so that visitors could assess the situation from the outside and offer their views on whether the flood was really coming. The ark was sealed, the family was inside, and the transformation was allowed to occur in the complete privacy of that enclosed space. The ark is your consciousness. The sealing of it is your silence and your selective withdrawal from environments and conversations that would open the door to the flood of other people's doubt. Now let me describe precisely what happens when this sealing occurs. When you hold the assumption in genuine silence, and when you have sufficiently insulated your consciousness from the constant reinforcement of the old state, the creative pressure builds. The subconscious mind, receiving no contradictory signal from your speech or your social environment, receives the new assumption as the dominant reality and begins to reorganize around it. Your inner conversations shift, not through effort, but through the natural process of a mind no longer being pulled in two directions at once. The assumption begins to feel less like something you're holding and more like something that simply is. And the outer world, which is always the last to know but the most faithful reporter, begins to rearrange itself accordingly. People behave differently toward you. Opportunities become visible that were always present but invisible to a consciousness divided against itself. Solutions appear, doors move, and because you have not been speaking of your desire, because you have not been watching the audience for their reaction to your progress, the outer change arrives with a completeness and a swiftness that seems, from the outside, almost inexplicable. It is not inexplicable. It is the law, given the conditions it requires to operate at full force. I want to speak now about the specific moments when these disciplines feel most difficult to maintain, because I have found that most people do not fail in the clear light of understanding. They fail in the particular pressured moment when the old behavior asserts itself most forcefully. The first of these moments is when the outer world offers apparent evidence against your assumption. Something happens, a setback, a contradicting fact, a conversation that seems to confirm everything the old state was built on, and the immediate impulse is to speak, to tell someone, to process it aloud with a trusted companion. And this impulse feels entirely natural. For most of your life, speaking about difficulty has been the way you moved through it. I want you to resist this impulse, not by suppressing it, but by redirecting it inward. When the outer world contradicts your assumption, the response of one who understands the law is not to speak, but to deepen the assumption, to return, right in the midst of the apparent evidence, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is the practice. This is the work, and it cannot be done outwardly, through speech, however sympathetic the listener. It can only be done inwardly, in the silence where assumption has its power. The second difficult moment is when someone you love asks you directly what is happening, what you are working toward, how things are going, why you seem distant or changed. And the love you feel for that person makes the silence feel like a withholding, like a failure of intimacy. Here I want to offer you a distinction. Silence about your desire is not silence about yourself. You are not required to become unreachable or opaque in all things. You are required only to protect the specific creative process that is underway. You can be present, warm, engaged, and loving with the people in your life while maintaining absolute silence about the particular assumption you are holding. These are not in conflict. One is a spiritual discipline about creation. The other is the ordinary territory of human relationship. Do not confuse them. The third difficult moment is the one that comes from within. The sudden, sharp impulse to check, to see if anything has changed, to look for evidence, to lift the stone and see if the seed has sprouted. This impulse is perhaps the most destructive of the three, because it is the one most disguised as reasonableness. And I will tell you plainly, do not check. Do not look for signs. Do not monitor the outer world for confirmation that the inner work is proceeding. The law does not require your surveillance. The process does not need your oversight. The seed grows whether or not you are watching, and you're watching. By returning your attention to the outer world of appearances, returns your creative weight to the state you are trying to leave. Your only task is to maintain the inner state. Everything else is the law's business. There comes a point, and you will know it when it arrives, because it carries a quality that is unmistakable when the assumption has fully become your nature. When the new state is no longer something you are maintaining, but something you simply are. When the old state, if you try to return to it, feels genuinely foreign, like trying to recall the exact quality of an anxiety you no longer feel. This is what I call the emergence, and it corresponds in the natural pattern to the butterfly leaving the chrysalis. The butterfly does not leave the chrysalis to announce its transformation. It does not invite the caterpillars it once traveled with to witness its wings and confirm that yes, indeed, the change has occurred. It emerges because the transformation is complete, and the emerged state is now its natural one. What it was before simply is no longer relevant, not rejected, not resented, simply superseded. When you reach this point in your own transformation, something interesting tends to occur with the people around you. Some of them will shift, not because you have done anything to them, but because your changed consciousness is now sending different signals, and their response to you has naturally adjusted. You will find that conversations that once pulled you back into the old state no longer have that power, because the state they are referencing no longer fully exists in you to be activated. Others will naturally fall away. Not through conflict, not through any deliberate severing on your part, but simply because the resonance that once connected you to them has changed. You have tuned to a new frequency. The old frequency no longer calls you, and the connection, being a function of shared consciousness, loosens and dissolves on its own. And some will arrive. New people, new associations, carrying in their consciousness the states that correspond to your new one. Not as strangers, but with the immediate recognition of those who belong together, because at the level of consciousness you already do. This is not manipulation. This is not the calculated social engineering of someone who has decided to upgrade their network. This is the natural, impersonal, completely reliable operation of the law. Your world is your consciousness pushed out, and when your consciousness genuinely changes, your world changes with it, down to the people it contains. I want to leave you with something tonight that is more than a technique and more than a principle. I want to leave you with an understanding that once received will make silence and sacred selectivity not disciplines you impose on yourself, but the natural expression of something you know. Here it is. You are the creating consciousness, not a part of it, not a beneficiary of it, not a petitioner before it. You are it. The same awareness that spoke the world into being is the awareness looking through your eyes at this moment. And when it creates as it has always created, in the silence of its own being, from the fullness of its own assumption, without the need for witness or validation or the approval of any other mind. Every time you speak of your desire, before it is established, you are acting as though you need the outer world to confirm what the inner world has already decided. Every time you remain in environments that hold you in the old state, you are acting as though the outer world has power over the inner, when the truth is precisely reversed. Silence is not weakness. It is the recognition that you have all the power, and that power is entirely inward, and it requires no reinforcement from without. The covenant I am inviting you to make with yourself tonight is simply this: to treat your desire with the reverence it deserves, to carry it in the privacy of your own consciousness, as a mother carries a child, not hidden out of shame, but held in the intimate warmth of an inward space that is yours alone. To insulate it from the chill of other people's doubt and the erosion of environments that do not match it. And to trust, not hope, but trust, that the law which has never failed anyone who gave it the conditions it requires will not fail you. Go into your silence tonight, not as a practice, not as a strategy, as a homecoming to the creative awareness that you have always been, operating in the only way it has ever operated, in the only place creation has ever occurred, in the silence of your own consciousness, in the absolute privacy of your own assumption, in the complete knowing that what is planted there, held there, protected there, must become the world you walk through. Be still and know. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.